Redditors who were dating someone that went from "I think I want to marry this person" to "I think I need a restraining order, what happened?" We were actually engaged to be married. Then she went on holidays without me and came back pregnant. She then told me, "You have never done anything to prove you really love me. Accept this baby and help me raise it to prove it." I declined and asked her to leave the home that I paid for and that was in my name. She refused. So I made arrangements, cancelled my lease, then left and told her there were 4 days left on the lease. "I think," she wailed, "but what am I supposed to do? I don't have a job." We met online. We both had video games in common and hit it off. Fast forward 2 years and we get engaged. All was well. Until he started getting abusive toward me and our pets. I felt stuck because I could afford to live on my own. Then he went on a business trip and I found child porn on a hidden flash drive. Turned it in, he got arrested. Turns out he was also hiring prostitutes and stuff. He's in prison and it's illegal for him to contact me. After being beat down mentally from her, I started suffering from erectile dysfunction at 22 years of age. Eventually I mustered the courage to leave her. She quickly moved on to someone else, who would later become her husband, and called me every week to basically rub it in. Saying how much better he was than me. How much bigger he was than me, etc. etc. I moved out of state. Changed my number. Never heard from her again. She called my parents and even showed up at their home, but they told her to go away. About 10 years later my friend ran into an old friend of hers. Apparently my ex got arrested for beating her own mother. Got out of jail, and beat her husband, then tried to take their kids from him. She was arrested again, and later released. Guess I dodged a huge bullet there. I graduated. She wanted to transfer schools. So, we moved to a college town where she told me she'd been accepted as a transfer. Turns out she hadn't been accepted, and when she applied, was not accepted. She got a job at Walmart while trying to figure out her next move. After about 2 months she decides we should move to Pittsburgh. She's convinced this will solve all her problems and make her happy. Except we're in a recession and I just got my first good job. I don't want to move. She became abusive. I didn't want to go home. She was constantly negative and on the edge of a screaming fight. I was just avoiding her at the end. We were together 4 years before that, and she was always moody but not abusive. 6 months of that, and she went to her hometown to take a semester at a local school and stay with her parents. I called her 2 weeks later and told her not to come back. It had been like a weight was lifted from me, and I never wanted to see her again. He cut himself in front of me and threatened to stab my cat. She cheated on me the day my dad died. I was young, dumb, and thought I was in love and ignored many red flags. As he got more comfortable around me he let his crazy out. Someone stole his cell phone and he asked me to purchase a shotgun for him so he could go shoot the person who did it. It took me another 1.5 years to leave. I did try breaking up with him but he told me that if I ever tried to break up with him again he'd kill everyone I love and then himself so I'd know what it was like to be alone. That relationship ended in an order of protection against domestic violence. He was nuts. Deleted. Deleted. I was dating a guy who was very sweet in the beginning. After about 6 months he got possessive. He didn't trust me. An example of this was one night I told him I was meeting a friend I used to work with at a bar a block away. We lived in a safe area and it was a short walk. Her name sounded like it could be male or female, but I assured him she was a she. He showed up at the bar while we were there and it made him look very insecure. He began tracking my phone's GPS. I found out when I stopped at a relative's house after work on my way home and he freaked out and called my mom. She actually knew that was where I was and he had a hard time believing I wasn't cheating. The last straw was my first week at a new job. I worked nights and had my phone. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. After I broke up with him, I got emails for months swinging between apologies and telling me I was the abuser. I got emails telling me he was being drugged. It was insane. We were in a long-distance relationship for over 3 years and eventually it started to fizzle. She'd tell me to move to the States and drop my college degree, my family and my animals to live as an illegal immigrant, and I could just do whatever odd jobs I could find just to be with her. I told her I needed to wait. She'd get very upset every time I went out with friends and would bombard my Facebook wall with random garbage and send me private messages with passive-aggressive insults and threats of suicide. I broke it off with her and moved on, but she kept messaging me asking to be friends. I tried, but she'd randomly blow up at me insulting me for ruining her life by making her think she could be loved. I told her she did deserve love and she'd get even more upset. We couldn't talk at all. Last year she messaged me yet again. We broke up in 2013, telling me that I had a legal obligation to marry her since I said I would 5 years ago, and therefore she expected me to just fly up there and fulfill my obligation to her. Had to block her. Edit, sorry, I don't think I explained myself properly. It wasn't an exclusively online relationship. We did see each other. I would travel up there twice a year whenever I had vacations from uni and spend about 2 months with her, which were always great. She'd just get incredibly possessive and insecure when we were apart because my social life started to blossom down here and she was scared I'd meet someone else. Once I stayed for 6 months until the very last day of my visa. Started dating in high school, had some ups and downs, but at the time I just chalked it up to us being immature. My last 2 years of college really proved he just had serious issues. When I moved out of state for good, it's like a switch flipped and he got extremely possessive and controlling. Wanted all my friends' numbers, gave me a schedule of when we need to be in communication, and if I missed any he was blowing my phone up with threats of suicide. Finally got the restraining order when he showed up to my friend's apartment looking for me, threatening to call the police because I still had a pair of his shoes that I didn't even have. We were spending a large amount of time together, with me staying at his house several nights of the week. He went mad one day because he said we weren't spending enough time together. He pulled out a notepad and drew up a schedule, outlining in excruciating detail each hour that I would spend with him throughout the week from then on. And I distinctly remember sitting there, saying nothing and feeling like I was in the twilight zone. Things got significantly crazier from then on, but this moment always sticks out in my mind. Edit 1, I've just woken up to lots of messages of support. Thanks so much, I am very happy to have gotten away from this kind of controlling behavior. This was a number of years ago and I have done much healing since then. By the way, on a slightly more amusing but equally crazy note, this guy also once wrote a book about me. A full-scale novel. Edit 2, lots of people asking about the novel. We had been broken up for a few weeks when he randomly emailed me a PDF. The novel had a picture of me on the front cover. It was a romance story about the entire lives of 2 people. It was very clear that these characters were supposed to be us, thinly disguised with different names. It was a fictional imagining of what our lives would have been like together, with entire chapters on our wedding and our happy fun time life. It was so clear that this was an over-the-top attempt to get me back. The book was clearly written in a great hurry and was full of mistakes. He kept slipping pronouns, totally forgetting that he was writing a third-person novel and addressing me directly by saying things like, "You know I am your destiny, scream something, no one will ever make you feel the way I do." I highly doubt he tried to get it published. I found out he was soliciting underage girls. Like a record scratch, it was over. Edit, whoa, thank you all. Yes, he was arrested and went to jail. The worst version I have of this was a guy that I had been dating, who rammed my truck with a moving van, repeatedly, at an immigration checkpoint in New Mexico, well after dark. He thought it was funny. He'd been behaving badly, but I just thought it was the stress of the move. The aggravated assault by U-Haul is when I decided to break up with him. He stalked me for years after that, harassing me at work, which led to me getting fired. I switched from law firms to legal software, and that seemed to make it harder to find me. His stalking ended in blowing up a brick-and-mortar mailbox with plastic explosives. I think he laid low after that, because the FBI was looking for him. He eventually moved back to California, years later. An ex-girlfriend of his contacted me about 7 years later when she was settling his estate. She wanted to make sure there weren't any children. Started dating not long after a previous relationship. At first everything was amazing and I did everything for this girl. For my 21st birthday we went to Alton Towers with 2 of my friends, 1 boy and 1 girl. We stayed over at the hotel. We were all in the same room having a drink and a laugh when suddenly my GF storms out the room for no reason. Rightly so, I follow her back to our room as to ask what's up. Before I can even finish my sentence, she punches me square in the face, gets me to the floor and kicks me about 5-6 times. I ask why, and it's because I'm apparently always looking at my girl-friend. Anyway, in the morning we set off home and I assume all is well. We drop my friends off, and as I pull up to her house she puts her feet on my windscreen and kicks it 3/4 times, cracking it. Not sure why I stayed with her for a month after this, as she scratched at my face repeatedly when I accepted an old school friend on Facebook.